Maboika, ituno kina atiao no. Well, how's everyone doing? Here I am again. Just recapping on some stuff, and we're just gonna really go in on the shadow self, or what we call the moon energy, which is a reflection of your light energy, or what you mean the electromagnetic forces, electricity that we bring in from the sun. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, let's get going with it. I'm gonna have to figure out a way where I can get phone calls too. If anybody want to call in, there's a way to do it. But I'm just figuring everything out and getting everything, preparing everything. You know what I'm saying? Just to have these conversations. I think it's very important. So, recapping back, remember I tell you I deal with 9 energy centers, which are the vortex that I deal with that are in tune with certain aspects of human nature. You know what I'm saying? Our human experience and the human nature. So when we deal with the one, well, there is two more, or there is many more. There's many more vortex in the cosmos. You know what I'm saying? But we're dealing with the one that is right now is affecting us personally. You know, and the highest one right now dealing with the 9 will be the star center, the star energy center. And that one, the process of that is sustenance. It's where we gain that light, the electromagnetic forces and light which power up the earth and powers our body. And remember, we spoke about getting some sun in and eating some sun food, electrified food, and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? And the um, the process is this is your sole purpose. You know what I'm saying? Your sacred contacts. You know what I'm saying? Knowing, you're achieving your highest destiny, right? You're healing your karmic wounds. And we went into the karma and what are the different, like the 12 karma. You got to just look at some of the podcasts and really home in on it. Um, and you understand your personal archetype. And we went into brand archetypes, but these are archetypes that are more across the board, and you can see a person's archetype. It's good to know what's your personal archetype. It's good for conversation, and it's good to strengthen your ability to know who you are, as a person, personality, and as a spirit. We're going to go into spirits too. Um, and knowing your archetypes is simple, and of course, remembering your connection to the source. What is the source of everything living here? The source? The sun. If that sun decide to become non-existent and its plasma and everything just burns out, then this whole solar system burns out with it. It becomes a dwarf star. It just becomes annihilated, and it might become something else. That's a possibility. But the world you know it as now will be gone. If that sun decide not to do what it does. So that's connecting to the source. You know what I'm saying? Then when we go down into the crown, again, the crown is 1,000 petals. It's like a dish, a satellite dish, when it homes in on the cosmos. You know what I'm saying? And it gains that energy in, and then it filters that energy down into your energy center. And that's dealing with ascension. That is the process of ascension. You become a spiritual warrior when you concentrate. Or remember when we say when you put your consciousness, your awareness into that particular energy center, right? And the ascension of that creates a warrior. We become spiritual warriors. Self realization, mastery of consciousness. In other words, we get to learn how to put our awareness to different parts of our mind and different areas, you know what I'm saying, that is dealing with the mind because everything is mental, right? But to certain areas, we shine that light. But remember, that light is also going to create shadow, and we're going to speak about that. So this is where your spirituality comes in. This is your relationship with the divine. What we call divine means that higher. Um, divine means like a higher self. You know what I'm saying? Divinity, the highest self. We need to go more into the definitions of that. I have it, but I need to do a special podcast about that. Now, in this crown energy center, once you are conscious of this crown energy center, the purpose for that is for you to find the sacred meanings in life, the different sacred meanings in life. You're living in the present moment. Very important. As you're surrendering again to the divine, feeling unity with all things and all beings. Okay, so this is what happens in the crown energy center. Now, where we at is at the brow center, what they call the third eye, some call it the first eye. And that's where revelation happens. That's when things are revealed to you. Your perception, your vision, your devotion is here. Your fidelity is here. Your high magic, when we spoke about this, sacred love, mysticism, drawing aside the veil. So this is where this happens at. You know, when you put your energy there, this is so so the process, the outcome of that, the process will be balancing your intellect with your intuition. You know, you become open-minded. You're opening your mind, you're trusting intuitive insights, you're developing a creative imagination and your ability to visualize things. So that happens at the brow. But now let me stop there for a minute and just go in on a little bit on this concept. So when you look at the star energy center, right, and it's connecting you to you're achieving your highest destiny. You're healing your karmic wounds. You're understanding your archetype, right? You're understanding a lot about yourself. This is where your sustenance. You learn about the sun and the sustenance. The electromagnetic forces. What the other side of that, the shadow that it casts in people, is that they start creating dogma and doctrine. Now, like I said, there is a spherical type of force. So you have a sun energy, which is this energy center. When it's lit up, your consciousness, and then it casts a shadow, which is a dogma and doctrine. Is the shadow, is the moon energy that is casting. And one of the first ones that when reading and investigating, one of the first ones to actually create this dogma and doctrine was Thoth, what they call Tahuti, and the sacred wisdom of Tahuti, or the Kabbalion, or Hermes, Trigessamite. So this being in time with the Emerald Tablets was responsible, was who created one of the first doctrine, because he was known as a moon deity, reflecting what is the light. Because at the time that he did that was a time that the world was getting into a moon cycle. So he was the initiator, the first one on that moon cycle, to actually create this dogma and doctrine, what they call the Hermetic principles. That's what I'm saying. There's I wouldn't say that it blocks you for connecting to the source, but it offers a shadow self. It offers the ability for you to connect and to balance that energy and to get back to the source. Because if you don't know, if all you know, in other words, in order for you to know something or to be true, you got to know what's false. In order for you to know what it is to connect to the source, you have to know what is that which pulls you away from the source. And a lot of that is doctrine and dogma. You know what I'm saying? And I'm trying to find the more conventional way to express that thought. You know what I'm saying? So it's like The doctrine, like the Hermetic principles, those doctrine amplify the ability for you to look at one side and the other side and balance it, right? When you do that, then you have to look at the source of it, which is the middle, or the source of it, the middle of it, which will connect you to the source. Now, this happens in a lot of religions. You know, like for instance, in Islam, you have what they call Salatul Ikhlas. Salatul Ikhlas is the surah of the what they call the purified ones. It leads you to the source because it says Kul huwallahu ahad. It don't say wahad. Wahad is one. Ahad is the state that is before the one, which is the middle, because you have a state that creates, then you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, but on the reciprocal, the other side, you got the -1, -2, -3. The middle point is what they call ahad, and it's the purified balancement. It's the purified realm. So in each religion, you can see when you study in each religion, Kabbalah, and you study Masonry in Christianity, when you start getting into their doctrine is basically because of the moon cycle, the doctrine developed in a form where dogma and doctrine were now the way to balance yourself. But you see, we moved on from there with this new paradigm, this new great transformation. Now it's about connecting directly with the source. Our enlightened self is beginning to be lit up because of the earth or the sun. Electromagnetic forces are beginning to affect our society and the way in our humanity and the way we're thinking. If we do the right thing, if we eat the right foods, you know what I'm saying? If we get that sunlight and the exercise in, excuse me, then of course, it's going to activate that light beam within yourself, and then you're able to, again, address duality, and you're able to see it, you know what I'm saying, for what it is. But that's um it's inevitable, and that's evident. There's people out here that's trying to block that, but you see more humanity waking up to the truth because they're questioning their beliefs, they're questioning their doctrine, and they're questioning their dogma. And if they do the right thing and the right reincarnation with certain beings are here, and they're listening to these reincarnation, and they're listening to those like-minded, then they'll start putting the pieces together. And that's what we're going to get into in a few, about lies. What is lies, falsehood? It's broken pieces and of the puzzle. And when you put that together, then you create truth. So in the star energies center is where I won't say dogma and doctrine blocks it, but dogma and doctrine is the shadow of that energy center. Is because of the enlightenment ones and the axioms and the communication that they had on this earth. Humanity during that time wasn't prepared to gain all of that light. So what happened? They created doctrine and dogma. They created Buddhism. They created Sikhism. They created Christianity. You know what I'm saying? It's because that was the time where it was an evolutionary cycle. In the evolutionary cycle, religion was the way to gain certain light. So then when you go down, now that's the start. When you go down to the crown, you have the ego attachment. And this is talking about the shadow self, the part that we don't see normally, but if you have a good keen eye, you're able to discern certain shadow selves that a lot of us carry, especially humanity. So this ego attachment is the reflection of this crown energy. Because remember, when you at your crown energy, when you at your crown energy, you're ascending, right? And you become a spiritual warrior. You become self-realized, and then you start mastering consciousness, right? And overcoming duality. And you finding your sacred meaning in life. Now, when you go into and you start walking on a beach and looking at the ocean, you start seeing a different perspective. Immediately, it should hit your mind, right? At first, you're saying, wow, I mean, this is great. And your ego will want to take over, right? But then there's a part that you become humble and say, wait a minute. When you shine consciousness onto that energy center, you say, wait a minute, this is much bigger than me. Much, much bigger than me. You know, you walk into a library, a big, huge library, you're saying, wow, there's so much knowledge in here. I don't know everything. There's much to do, there's much to learn. So that's how you balance the ego. But now you need ego in order to understand that part of the light. Remember, it is casting a shadow. It is casting that ego, that sense of ascension is casting that ego attachment. Because as you're ascending and you're finding the meaning of life, and you're ascending and you're seeing the all consciousness, you also have to be aware that your ego is starting to show. It's casting light on your ego also. So your ego is starting to show. So you have to balance it, you know, with certain, what do you say, with certain techniques, you know what I'm saying? Certain axiom, keeping that beginner's mind, you know what I'm saying? Even when you looking, because you say, I'm in a quest to find the meaning of life. The second, oh, I found it, I found it. But then right there, when you say you found it, you think you know it all. You know what I'm saying? That's how the ego could sip in and they play. It's like, wow, I think I know it all. Like now, in order for me to speak on this podcast, I got to have some sense of ego. But at the same time, I say to myself, there's much to learn. It's much, much to learn. Because as you have this conversation and you go on, I come to find out, wow, there's much more to this. So I check my ego with that, you know? And then again, the brow center, you know, that's where revelation happens. That could be blocked by illusions. And remember, in the other podcast, I show you an illusion cast that it's like lewd means to play with something, to play. So we're being played. When someone say, "Oh man, you playing me," is in other words, you're casting an illusion on me. You're playing with my emotions. Movies plays with emotion. Even music, songs, lyrics plays with your emotion. Entertainment plays with your emotions. So we have to be aware of that. But it's entertainment. And a lot of times you have to, you can innocently play on someone to get them to react a certain way, which might be beneficial for everybody. Do you understand what that means? Is that there are magicians, life magicians, archetypes that cast illusions because they understand the shadow self, they understand that entertaining self. They cast that illusion in order to move humanity to a more better place or beneficial place. And you say, but then how is that? Well, simple is the content. If you cast an illusion and it's like a script, you can't an illusion, you have a realization. At the end result, the outcome is a realization. And that's the point right there where if you're truthful with yourself, you're able to digest that and say, oh, there's a bigger picture to this. How I can be played. But if you're gonna play me in the right direction. You know, play with me. You go, put me in a place where I can learn and master these illusions, or be more conscious of these certain illusions, so that I can balance my third eye, my imaginary eye. There's much more to this. You know what I'm saying? Much more. But I've seen that. You know, there's been magicians work, in other words, working in hospitals to make these children that are ill, make them feel better. So they cast the illusions to make them their mind feel better, to sort of like keep them, in a happy mood, or keep them in a beneficial mood, happy. You know what I'm saying? And it's just for a while. It's just so you're playing with that emotion, but you can do it in a positive way. So that's what I'm saying. So the shadow is part of our human existence, and it's where you gain this magic, this higher magic at. When you look at these magical songs, or these films that have created, even when you look at, for instance, the Bible. If you was to read the Bible from beginning to end, you will read one of the most horrific, sorrowful stories of it all, about especially the people of the Israelite paradigm. From the beginning to the end, it's nothing but what? Fornication, sorrow, lost of land, lost of envious, wars, plagues, pedophilia, human sacrifice. You can find all of this in the Bible, all of it. And they amplify that in order for the end to have the realization. Whereas what? The Messiah is the realization, is the end result of it all. The new kingdom. It's a script. It's a movie script, a scripture. It's a movie script. You got a beginning, everything starts all right, and suddenly something happens to change the whole world, and that is what happens in the Garden of Eden with Eve and the devil. Changes the whole world. Then from then on, it's catastrophe, atrocities, heinous acts, and eating babies. So read on. Into finally the end, when Jesus is born, and then he goes through a lot, and then he is crucified because he is the sacrificial lamb. And then what happens? He raises up. And then you have Revelations, the new kingdom, the new name, the new Jerusalem. You know what I'm saying? That's the realization. It's a movie script. Just like any movie. It's the same way. You have a beginning of the movie, then you have the main event, the catalyst. Then you have the main event that the character has a certain morality, a certain way that he wants to keep, but everything is trying to test that. So you got the devil testing him, Satan. In the movies, you have the protagonist and antagonist. The protagonist is trying to get the antagonist out of the protagonist, whichever. I forgot a lot of that stuff. But anyway, you one a character is put against another character and tries to take him away from that proverbial mindset that he has. You know, it's a script, and then you have the realization at the end. And sometimes in the realization, it could also mean that it continues on and on and on beyond. So you create your imagination of what is the ending. But it's a script, you know? That's how I see it. You know what I'm saying? And that's all part of shining consciousness on dogma and doctrine, shining conscious awareness on the ego, and shining awareness on your illusions. And you can see how we are played and we're susceptible because it's a part of a human experience. It's just you have a group of people that had learned or had invested or had brung, had manipulated or has been in the forefront or the initiator of amplifying that shadow self because they knew that's where magic, high magic exists in the shadows. When you look at what is that, the charmed ones, the Book of Shadows. You always speak about witches. The Book of Shadows is the book of what fears and guilt and shame of how to deal with this stuff. You know, so they created a whole doctrine and dogma based on that. Just like in the white magic, Christianity and religion had created dogma and doctrine based on what? Something that's beneficial, so-called worth, whatever you're worth is good, right? When you look up the word good, you also see that the word good comes from the word in German Gud, G-O-D, and G-U-T, gut. And then when you look up the word God, you see that it also comes from German good. So it's a doctrine, and good for who? Because what can be, you see, again, knowing about duality, what can be good for one certain amount of people can be evil, the reciprocal bad for another group of people. And we see that played out in his story and in our story. You have people that had a book called the Holy Bible, and the way they took on, because when they read the Holy Bible, they see nothing but what? Wars and atrocities. They see a lot of things come in play. So they amplify that and brought that to civilizations that didn't have no concept. Not that they didn't have no concept, but they knew about the shadow self, because that's a human experience, and they were more in tune with nature. But they didn't use it as a industry, a device, as to create civilization or to create another scenario for another group of people. So you got these people coming from other areas with this dogma and doctrine and infusing it on another people and put them into slavery and atrocities and a lot of, but this has been going on because that's the industry. And then later on, what they did was they separated, again, human nature. They separated God, which is good, to evil, which is the devil or Satan. And they created a satanic doctrine on one hand, and then created a God doctrine on the other hand, but it's all of the same doctrine. Because when you read a satanic Bible,
you also read in there common sense and stuff that is deals with human nature. Human nature. Then when you read the Bible, you see the same thing. It deals with human nature, but it also deals with sin. It deals with atrocities. It deals with those attributes. Whereas in the Satanic Bible, it also deal with good attributes. Both are, I'm telling you, because that's that doctrine. That's separating the doctrine. Is that and and so the balancement of those forces are in within those books. And I'm talking about the Holy Bible on one end and the Satanic Bible, especially the one by Anton LaVey. And I read both. I read both because again, you're higher. They say you're good, but because it's all frequencies, all energy. You have to get past your fears. You have to face your fears. At one time, I was afraid of the dark. Man, I seen that movie, The Exorcist, and I did not want to go to bed in the dark. You see, I had to face my fears and says, man, they just eluded me and made me delusional with this fear. They caused an imbalancement in me. So I had to gain my balance back and says, wait a minute. And the way you do that is by understanding the dark. That in darkness came the light. And in darkness, life grows in darkness. The fetus grow in triple darkness in the mother's womb. You know what I'm saying? So I had to, once I learned, I started to balance that fear. I had to face that fear. You know, like I had to face certain guilt, on, and face certain shame. And the lies and the illusions. I had to learn what are illusions. So I started learning about. I was interested in learning about magic. So I was introduced a little bit of magic. A brother gave me a book, a sleight of hand book, and I started reading more about magic and seeing how illusions are cast and so. Then I started reading about Hollywood and Greek mythology and the Greek theater, where they cast that illusion with the mask, where they call the mask. And I started learning about the mask of God and things like that. Because I want, you know what I'm saying? Again, when you crown energy center, you become looking for the meanings of life, of your human life, your human experiences. You become to 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 ask questions and go on that quest and acquire knowledge and stack it on to know on the ledge becomes knowledge in stacks. And it's all, you know, and like I say, there's so much more, man. There's so much more we are not privy to. There's just so much more to know. That's the reason why that leads me to the throat energy center is that quest and to know and to question. We're at this great transformation where we should be questioning the beliefs. Remember, one axiom that always stuck with me from Sufism is that you can believe in your cart that'll take you to your destination, but not know that there's a wheel loose. Knowing is much more powerful than just believing. People ask me, "Do you believe in God?" No, I know God. I know what it is. I know. I know when they use it as an acronym. I know when they use it as a doctrine, a dogma. You can see it. Say, I know that. I know that is a Gothic word, and on and on and on. That's knowing. That's powerful. Than just to say, "Oh, I believe," and that's it. Which is all right by me. You know, there's a very a lot of lucky people out there. A very a lot of lucky people. On just they just thrive on belief, and they still make it. You know what I'm saying? And that's cool. That's cool. You know. But there is another what they call in the shadow self. There's another way of gaining instead of luck of gaining what you're seeking after, and that's by knowing and doing the work. You know what I'm saying? It's just the way I'm wired. That's it. You know, I can't believe everything I say. I got to research it, and I got to know this is where it's at. You know, this is what I know. This is what we know as a whole. This is what's in the books. This is what's in conversation. This is what's in reasoning. You know, a lot of people think, so they think linear, but they don't reason. That means they don't look at the fourth dimension, the timeline, the going back and forth in the spherical circular way. You know, in other words, a lot of devices they have just measures the thin line, right? But what about the life is a wave, right? So you got a high figure low is a wave. If you put those waves together, it creates what? A spiral, a circle. You know. So there's many different ways of looking at it. If you're looking at it from the angle way, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just having a little conversation here. So yeah, the the third eye or the bioenergy center. It's imaginations and there are groups. There are artists that know that if I could amplify the shadow self, then I can gain more of a powerful. I can gain more of a powerful impact on humanity. It's just the way we wired. But now, in this present time, that's all. We're in the sun cycle. So now it's about that enlightenment. It's knowing the shadow and knowing the light and being enlightened, you know? So you're going to see a lot of more lyrics, a lot of movies, lyrics, in that business of entertaining. You're going to see them gaining more if they're doing the right thing. You can see the ones who are more starting to ascend. Like for instance, what's the name? Ice Cube. He's beginning now to understand the difference between political dogma and doctrine that he created his own. See, we have the ability to create our own party. It's just that a lot of us get caught up in one doctrine, the other one, and in the system, and we and so you're gonna see there's a lot. You're gonna see a lot of people leaning more to independence, independent. You're gonna see people leaning more to want to create their own parties. It's like throw your own party, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Pull out the Hennessy, the Moet, the Sparkles, and throw your own party up here. Because those parties that they throw, that they didn't invite you, and they close the doors, and they secretly, if you look at the Republicans are throwing their magic out by inciting certain fears, you know, certain doctrine out there that causes fears and guilt, making people feel guilty. Oh, if you don't vote Republican, or if you don't vote the right wing Republican, you're not real American. You know what I'm saying? Because America, guilt and fear and shame. This is how they manipulate you. And then you on the other side, you got the blue side, you got the Democrats doing the same thing. You know, if you don't do what we say and get this president, you know what I'm saying? They're all inciting on people's apprehension, people's anxiety because the system, because the anxiety was created in this particular time called COVID-19. So this is a play. This is an illusion. They're playing. They're playing with our emotions here. They're playing with our values, our worth. They're playing with it. But this is what they do. This is their industry. This is their culture. This is what they do. And so we got to say, so how are we going to deal with that? One is recognize the problem, recognize what it is, so that you can navigate your life according to that. You know, as I lean more to the Taino resurgence, I lean more to to create a paradigm habit that my ancestors, because that's when you get down to the earth energy center. My ancestors pattern and my genetic blueprint is solidified, is strong. Strong. You know? So there's a lot to that. So, for anyone listening, you know, I don't know everything, but I can tell you that I have experienced a lot of different schools of thoughts, you know what I'm saying? And in those schools of thoughts, you learn certain things, especially when you deal with sacred knowledge. And what I can say is I've learned from the mistakes that I've made. And I want and my job right now is to make sure that others in humanity don't make the same mistakes that I've made. So I will always give you all the sizes, all that information. So if you want to make, you got free choice. But let me warn you something, that the cosmos has an effect, has a certain, also cast playing with us, casting an illusion. The cosmos has an effect on society. So what you may think is free will, no such thing. And perfect example, when you go to buy some shoes, you're thinking you're making a choice of shoes, but then you take your time and you're like, I don't know about that. I don't know about this. I don't know about this one. How does this look? And so they got you playing with your decision making, your mind, because the illusion was cast that you thinking they're having a free choice, but any choice you make was already predestined. And you learn that in magic, is that you thinking you're making a choice and you're picking that card, but it's somehow I have manipulated your mind so that you're choosing, out of all those choices, whatever choices you make, I'm already prepared to cast my illusion. You're not making your own shoes. See, that's another story. You're not creating, you're not designing your own card. So again, with life, it's the same way. You're thinking you're choosing freely, whatever, but it's already laid out for you. Now unless you're on a creative, that's why it's very important to be creativity, to harness knowing about illusions, knowing about the shadow self, so that you can create imagination, use imagination to create better content for yourself, and really not care about choices, because now you're creating your own way. You're not relying on something that's already chosen for you. That's why I say that even the political dogma or political doctrine, the election, that's all an illusion, because I'm not, whatever side I choose, it's the same system, it's the same corporation that's operating. It's just they're choosing a CEO to take over that. Now, of course, it depends on that CEO as to what type of programs and where they're gonna concentrate our debt because they're falling more and more in debt. Like 3.4, the deficit is $3.4 trillion, something like that. It's a debt, so yeah, if we're gonna be in debt, we might as well use that debt to, in other words, if I'm gonna buy that car and owe so much money to buy that car, but at least I'm gonna have that car and I'm gonna take care of that car, but I'm gonna sacrifice it. And it's the same thing with politics, you know, with that system, So they're trying to manipulate the debt. Is where we're gonna put our debt, why we're gonna waste our energy. Now I was gonna save this for the podcast when I speak about the root and talk about finance and speak about environment and stuff like that. Well, I've becoming to understand more, becoming more conscious of how finance work and how the monetary system is works in this country and also in the multiverse. And it deals a lot with currency, electromagnetic forces and currency. But we'll go over that when we get down there. But right now, we're talking about the illusions and the power of illusions. And Hollywood showing us that, the music industry showing us that, the art, the industry of the artists showed us that. So there are industries out there that showed us the power of harnessing that shadow self that we don't see. But that's the way they operate. Now we have to look at the power of harnessing our enlightened being. That's what the purpose of this is. Understand the power of the illusion, understand the power of the light. But now the enlightenment, that center, energy center, the power that that can have when you use both to your advantage to be beneficial to humanity. Both. Knowing how illusion works and knowing how knowing or illusion and reality of knowing how both works in the human experience and amplify that. Powerful, powerful, powerful. That's the goal. That's the goal. So straighten these energy centers or our life, these energies of our natural experiences, right? Strengthen that in our lives so that we become a standing firm on the ground and fixed firmly fixating ourselves with the multiverse. Interesting. I'm having a great time. I am having a wonderful time. I'm having a wonderful time in gaining in observing how awareness, consciousness works, and the amount of information, outformation, the formations of all these ideas and concepts of how you can harness power from that by putting it in its proper content, by putting it in its in energy center, in this awareness in certain energy spots, centers, whereas to enlighten yourself. So I'm having a wonderful time. And there's so much more to do. There is so much more. I need to get some t-shirts made. There is so much more to do. I'm having a wonderful time and there's so much more to do. I'm ready to climb that mountain, having that mountain view. I used to love it when I was in Borinquen, what they call Puerto Rico, because the town we're from in Maunabo, the southern part of the island, when you look at it from like that. Um, and Maunabo and Arroyo, and when you get to Maunabo, you got to go over a mountain. You can see clear. Wow, con el monte adentro, inside mountains, man, and the view humbles you, man. Humbles you. The view humbles you. Great, great. Everyone should experience that. You could take a trip to the island of Borinquen and experience that. Go to the Junque, the rainforest, and just experience the vastness of that rainforest and that beauty of nature, natural nature, tropical nature. And you say to yourself, wow, I'm having a wonderful time. There's so much here. There's so much to do. That'll be coming soon. T-shirts. Anyway, I'm having again, you know, I'm having wonderful, interesting conversation here. So it's very clear and it's very what do you say? It's obvious that illusions play a very important part in our lives, especially in this time of civilization. Illusions. It goes all the way back to Samaria. It even goes all the way back to ancient Kemet. There were illusion cast on the people. Ramesses built a temple, illusion. He played with people's mental, like, wow, this is huge. So this man, ego must have been huge. This man, I mean, huge. And why else would you erect a statue in the middle of the desert? When people look at it, their fear that they will have to say, wow, this is bigger than us. You see? It's the way you look at things, the perspective of it. And then in the Sumerian concept, those Anunnakis, there was a class of people that appeared to be of a, and there were scientific scientists in the Sumerian tablets. There were scientists that had cast that illusion that they are the gods. They are the ones that on control. Into something happened, they lost that control. After a time, people wake up, and your illusion now becomes exposed, and people get to know, well, especially if these illusions that was cast was then were not benefiting a certain group of people, then you're going to get pushback. You know what I'm saying? Can you imagine the illusion that was cast on the African slaves? The fear, the guilt, the shame. Can you imagine that? I don't think many can. But that lives in us because we, have African descendancy, and that lives in us genetically. But can you fathom that? How illusion, how the amplification of these the shadow self can lead goes to cast these illusions to make you feel that you're not worthy, you're an animal, you're a savage, you're naked, so you need to dress up. Can you imagine when those conquistadores or Columbus and these people came over to the island of Borinquen, and I'm gonna speak in that sense, because it also happened also in the mainland. But do you even think about how these people came with certain technology, gunpowder and guns, right? Certain technology. They came with their boats. They came with their dress. They came with their doctrine and dogma. Before they went into a village, they opened up a scroll, and in the name of God, or Dios at that time, Dios, in the name of God, I am going to civilize and make these people Christians. I'm going to change the way they dress because they're savages and they dress, they're naked. The women are exposing their titties. The men are exposing their butt cheeks. You know what I'm saying? They're living like savages, you know, in these camps, or whatever, villages, you know. Can you imagine the mindset of these conquistadores coming over, and then clothing? The Taino wasn't allowed no longer to wear the traditional clothes. They had to wear the European outfits because someone was making money. Let me tell you something, and I took the turn a little bit, but I was as a child, I think in elementary, they took us on one of those field trips. They took us down to I think the CBS building or something like that. And I remember this. I got it clear, man. First, they took us to the IBM building, I think, and we seen the big, a massive room with these big computers. And this is in the 60s. I'm talking about 66, 67. So maybe it could have been 60. I don't know. Yeah, 66, 67, 68, right around that time. So we go on this field trip. I think I was in the third grade, to be honest with you. Could have been 64. No, it could have been, yeah, no, 68. Yeah. So first they take us to this building, and I remember. So you see these big, big computers. I mean, massive, and it was a room full of these big computers, black boxes with a thing, twirling over. It looks like one of those what they call music man, what you call them? Yeah, tape. So you see this thing, and wow, and we were like, what? And that's the computer. That's the future. That's the computer room. And I was like, wow, interesting. Someone must have owned that, right? This is the IBM building. Then what freaked me out was they took us to the CBS building. And in the CBS building, they had a textile company. And they showed us these machines making fabrics. And I was saying, so someone owns all these machines that make this fabric, and everyone that we know wear fabric. Cotton fabric, polyesters, all different fabrics. There is a machine that makes these fabrics. Who owns those machines? Who owns that business, that textile business? So they had these in Europe, and they brought over. That's another revolution, the industrial revolution, was the clothing. And they clothe all people that they consider savages with cloth. Here in America, they owned the cotton fields where they could take that cotton and spun it, and make cotton fabric. It was a big business, textile business. So behind every illusion, or behind, you see, that's the thing. It's behind this human experience. But that we're gonna deal with that when we get to the root. We're gonna deal with it. But sustenance, well, we're gonna deal with that when we get to the root energy center. I'm gonna deal more in depth of that. I just wanted to share that little trip. And then going back to my thought was, if you're going to introduce a fashion to a group of people, you're doing it in the sense of profit. You're doing it in the sense of what? A sense of control. You know what I'm saying? You're doing it in the sense, you're doing it in the vines of expressing your culture and harnessing that ego that you're better, that is all about you and you're better. And this is what you're meant to do, because they use the dogma and doctrine of what they call Christianity, Catholicism at that time, the Vatican, the Pope, the Papal Bull. Hey, can you imagine that, man? I mean, wow. Jesus, I'm like, man. So when you look back, remembering your connection to the source, and then you look at these shadow selves and you're saying how a lot of these, the shadow self is human nature, and there are some people that lean more towards the shadow, and there are some people that lean more towards the light, and how they created this philosophy of putting each other against each other, at the same time creating that illusion that it's one side and the other side, when in reality it's the same system. The same system. I could find, I could learn a lot about Satan by reading the Holy Bible. I could learn a lot about the light, the God, the white light, God, by reading the Satanic Bible. Ain't that something? So there's people that uses that power to benefit, gain for themselves, selfish gain. And there's people that know this and uses that power to create better worlds and better scenarios and situations and conditions for humanity. It's just, you'll know by the outcome. So very quickly, let me talk about spirit, because there's a few podcasts talk about spirits and demon. And so, we're speaking the English language, which is fragmented because it has pieces of Greek and pieces of German, language, Greek language, and Latin language. It's all mushed in to what we call this English language we speak today, this American language. When you speak about spirit and you look up the word spirit in the definitions, you see that it deals a lot with attitude. It deals a lot with characteristics and personality. So spirit is really characters and personalities and attitudes and outcomes of that. When you deal with a demon, well, the original demon, what they did was, the spelling of that word was Daemon. So they took out the A and they created just the Demon, demon. And the original definition of that was a god. And then it started to, through doctrine, it started to again create the opposition of God, and whatever was adversary, adverse opposition to the good and the benefit of God became Satan and the devil. So when dealing with, when they say, oh, that person has a demon in them, well, that, you're judging that person, and are you looking at the outcome? Is that person creating a scenario that is harmful to humanity? Because if they are, then yeah, they're in their character and personality that they have taken in has become very detrimental to humanity and the whole. So that's the classification of a demon, demonic possession, a spirit, an evil spirit, right? And then a good spirit would be a spirit that is worth, beneficial, worthy. You know what I'm saying? So this is the thing. Everything in nature has character and personality. And you breathe. When you look at the word spirit for spiritus, also Latin for breathing, a breath, you breathe into an object or you give life. Wherever you put your concentration on, your awareness on, you give life to that, right? And so it becomes it becomes an object or a thought, an idea that has a particular character personality. So if you're a very caring person, or you're very beneficial to the whole humanity, you have these moralities, these high morals, then you put that energy into whatever a person, or you put that energy to your environment, you put that energy around you, then you see a good, what they call good spirit, or the person is in a good spirited mood. That means they have a decent character and personality. Now, when you talk about it carrying on to people, yes, you can gain character and personality from your environment that you're in, and also from your genetics. You can gain certain characters from your grandfather and grandma, and their personality. You know what I'm saying? And that's passed on through family, because that's the spirit of that particular family, genetics. And when something disrupt that, right, then that could become a demonic possession because it disrupted that. Or if you have a family that their character and personality was to be a butcher, so all they knew about is cutting up meat, and the next thing you know, and this and this been studied with serial killers and hitmans, is that certain families were butchers, and the characteristic and the personality came from that vein. You know, genetically, they're cutting up meat. They like to cut up meat. They like to see the blood shed. They like that slicing up that meat, that flesh. And then along the line, that gets construed, and so you have a serial killer. So you have a bad omen. You have a bad, what they call demonic possession person. So it's not easy to pick up any demonic possession from anybody. I mean, just by you being in an environment with somebody that is not beneficial, let's say you in a room and someone there is a pedophile, until they expose that and you see their character and personality, it's something is off with this person. That's a possession. The person appears to be all great, and I know people like that. Oh man, humble, great, soft spoken, whatever. But then you learn that they were pedophiles. You're like, whoa, I would have never known that. But then somebody said, I kind of like saw something in him. My spirit, again, your character and personality has a way that's able to determine. You are able to determine if another character personality, it's conducive to your personality. So, but this is the thing. That's a human thing. Spirit is a human experience that we have, character and personality. It's a human thing. Now, there are those that took that human experiences again and morphed that into a doctrine and a dogma. And so now they created what they call in Christianity exorcism. They put one against the other. They or they what they for lack of a verb pan it against the other. Which originally the devil was known as Pan, and then morphed into the devil from I think Greek ubel, ubel, ibel became devil or then devil. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, when certain characters and personalities and attitudes are not beneficial to the growth of a more organized and more morality, whatever, then yeah, that becomes an evil spirit, an evil character and personality. Those personality characteristics like to hide in the shadows. That's what I'm about this. It's important to know your shadow self so that you be able to see those evil personalities or those personalities that are disruptive within those centers. Hope I'm making that clear. Very important. Because there are people that hide themselves within they know how to manipulate the shadow to again do stuff that is detrimental or rob people of their innocence and so on, so on, so. But if you're aware of your shadow self, you aware that within yourself, then you can see that in others. Again, you're taking in all the light. One of the most important light you can take in is the black light, which is the ultraviolet light, which is the one that exposes the specks and stains of humanity. Exposes it. So you can see the stain on your shirt. You can see the specks in your fabric, in your life, in your character. And then what you do is where they get the concept of Messiah. Messiah means to wipe away, brush away, wipe away, right? You brush it away and you wipe it away. By what? By creating a new, or by wiping away and creating a clean environment, a clean attitude, a clean character and personality. You're able to wipe that away. And that's what is called the power of Messiah. Messiah, to wipe away. But then again, doctrine took it and put it into anointment and on and dogma and created rituals and some ritual. And let me tell you, and let me speak on real briefly. A ritual means rite of passage. Sometimes people need certain rituals to sort of like keep them focused on certain things. So rituals are not all that bad. It's just the way you use it. It's an item. It's let's say it's an instrument. Rituals are instruments. That's all they are. The right type of instruments, rituals, can create the right type of outcomes for you. You know, it's ritualistic to, when you go to church, the pastor has to do certain things and the deacon has to do certain things on and on to prepare for that for the church. I used to be a caretaker to the Science and Spiritual Living to the church over there in Orlando, Florida, and my job was to prepare the room with incense, frankincense, and there's certain ritualistic things. And I walked around, I said certain prayer. There's certain ritual things those are rituals. In the Catholic Church, they do it. I had one of those also with the frankincense. Walked around and make sure that there it was a favorable scent, and make sure there was a favorable atmosphere that was created. Very, very important when it comes to that, you know. So yeah, we spoke about the brow, the illusions. You know what I'm saying? Check out that other podcast I did about the illusions, and I even did a magic trick. Um, and and I did that because right now one of the biggest illusion. Well, I don't know because I think COVID-19 really put a damper on a lot of different organizations and a lot of life as we know it. So I don't know what the whole trick or treat is going to be like. You know what I'm saying? I don't think kids are allowed to go around knocking on doors or maybe with a mask, but they always wore a mask. That's interesting, right? And before you couldn't go into the store wearing a mask because you could have gone in there and robbed the place. Now everybody, you can't go to the store without a mask. You know, so I wonder if crime went up, robberies went up, and with the kids trick or treating wore masks, not to expose their true self, but to expose a mask or the certain character they wanted to be, or to reflect a certain character. I want to be Spider Man, or I want to be Snow White, or I want to be the devil, or I want to be this, that. I want to be werewolf or Frankenstein. You know what I'm saying? So these are all illusionary imagery. You know, so this is a time, or Hallow Eves, where you know they practice that, and it goes all the way back to Samain. You can go back. I could. I don't know. Maybe for Halloween I might just do a podcast about all of that and where the true essence of Halloween, where it comes from. If I could find those teachings, those sources and teachings. But anyway, that's basically it. I wanted to say, I have this little conversation. I got a little time here. My grandson is not here, so I'm able to quietly sit down and do these podcasts. And I got people running in and out of my house. I got kids, young children. You know how they are. You know, and but all good. I'm in a good place. Like I say, I'm having a wonderful time, but there's so much to do, so much to do. And so, love you all. Let me end this podcast right here, and hopefully, I'll get some feedback and smash that like button. If you got my YouTube is also Silo right here, Silos Conga. That's my YouTube. Go to Silos Conga and hit that like button. I don't get that much views over there. I get it more on Facebook, but I podcast both on Facebook and on YouTube. So right now this is live on YouTube, and right now it's live on Facebook. But hit that like button. Even I think of Facebook too. You hit the like button. You know what I'm saying? And just give me some ideas. Give me some advice. You know what I'm saying? My mother does that. You know what I'm saying? I know I gotta shave and make sure I'm clean. Presentation is everything. But right now, it's Saturday. I'm exposing myself. I'm in a good mood. I got my comedic shirt on. I'm in a great mood. I'm having a wonderful time, y'all. Wonderful time. You know, there's so much to do. So much to do. Peace and blessings. See ya.